There were palisades all around this place. In 1660, or a little earlier, the Jesuits built a palisade around the Feverel Creek village.
The Faverel River.
That's right. The St. Francis fiefdom was called the Faverel River Village, but it also had two other names, the Village of the Cross and the Middle Village.
But, Grandma, I imagine that you're wondering what the village looked like at the beginning.
A first church was built nearby, along with about 15 houses, and 18 families would settle here.
Still, that was pretty good for 1660. And the sector would remain the hub of the parish until 1953.
It's one of the 8th oldest parishes in New France.
As for the church, I know that you'll wonder where it was roughly located.
I'll give you the answer, but just before I do, we'll head over to the front of the small shrine. So, the first church, as well as the cemetery, were located in front of the current small shrine.
You might still imagine next to nothing, but it's worth knowing that they took apart the St. Mary Fiefdom's church and then rebuilt it right over there.
All right, well, Louis-Philippe is pointing at nothing, but it's near what we see over there, the floral arrangement right in front of us.
And the cemetery was right beside it.
Until 1880.
Did Grandpa speculate that people no longer died in 1881?
But truth be told, they had to build a third church, so they moved the cemetery.
Because as you know, Grandma, those two things go together pretty well. And you have to know that the construction of the small shrine was completed at the beginning of the 18th century.
In 1720, to be precise. As early as 1714, parishioners knew that Pierre Boucher's church, which was made of wood, was really too small. It measured only 30 feet by 16 feet.
In Canada, the current small shrine, which opened in 1720, is the oldest church that's still open as a place of worship. In fact, it's been a place of worship since July 22nd, 1720.
And that date happens to fall on St. Mary Magdalene's birthday. Oh, Grandma, I promised to buy you a calendar with photos of the shrine at the boutique.
Well, now, it's not in the calendar, but I found out that the small shrine is a lot bigger than the first church.
That's for sure. It's twice as big. And since there's only 16 families at the time, the parish ran out of money.
So they held a gospel-a-thon.
Of course not. The Bishop of Trois-Rivières made a contribution, and he even had the nerve to ask the people of Bécancour on the other side of the river, but they refused.
I must admit that it's a long canoe ride to go to confession. Even driving over the bridge in a car can take a long time.
And at the time, as you know, Grandma, people didn't make many deals with the devil to take off a bewitched canoe with the aim of going to pray. And the small shrine, the oldest church, is said to be a beacon that shines with the divine light.
And now, Grandma, how do we know that it's the oldest church?
Quite simply because it didn't burn down.
So it didn't have to be rebuilt. And it didn't burn down thanks to the Rainmaker priest.
Who?
Father Vachon, the priest who worked miracles.
Come on, that wasn't even meant to be on the cassette.
Well, that's a legend Grandpa used to tell me.
Okay, but don't be too long. A cassette has a limited amount of time.
Once upon a time, when a drought hit the entire Mauricie, things were dry. Even the Faverel River had dried up. Well, a forest fire spread from Saint-Élie-de-Caxton.
Now, come on, that didn't even exist at the time.
Don't interrupt me. It's a legend, so I'm laying it on for Grandma. Fire that moved 2 leagues per hour. Panic spread through the middle fiefdom. The fire was coming. Without a miracle, the 15 or so houses would go up in smoke. Whoosh! So the villagers asked Father Vachon to communicate directly with God and ask him for a miracle. The priest asked the villagers to bring him their last water supplies. The river was dry. The Faverel River had turned to dust. The wells were empty. In short, throughout the middle village, there was only enough water left to fill a glass, a quart, a pint. All 16 families gathered in front of the small shrine. The priest took the glass, raised it to the sky, and recited a prayer in Latin. And he drank the whole glass of water in front of the crowd. The women shouted profanities, the men wanted to fight, but the priest solemnly took a rope, stretched it between 2 trees, pointed to the sky, and took off his cassock in front of everyone. Fortunately, he was wearing ecclesiastical undergarments, the famous exercise garments. He raised the cassock to the sky, reciting psalms in Latin, and he pulled out 2 clothespins from who knows where. He hung his cassock on the rope with the first clothespin, and as he was about to fasten the second clothespin, the sky darkened. Black clouds formed, followed by a torrential downpour and a Noah's flood. However, after 40 seconds, the fire that had been gaining ground was extinguished by the hand of God. After that, the happy villagers wanted to know what miraculous prayer had made the rain fall. And then Father Vachon said in all sincerity and kindness, "Ladies and gentlemen of the parish, my dearest wide-eyed settlers and lambs, I said not a word to our Lord. I don't know about you, but whenever I hang my laundry to dry, it starts to rain."
I never heard that story from Grandpa.
That's normal. He made it up on a stormy night when the power went out. And that's when Grandma told him that the church was made of stone, which doesn't burn too quickly.
You have a point. And I have to say that stone gives it a nice character. Grandma loves Récolette-style churches.